Harry, Rebecca, and Rome gathered after the feast to revel in their success. They were grinning from ear to ear. "We couldn't have done it without Stephen," Rebecca said. "He was acting all self-important from the last time we saw him. I'm heading over to show him that we're not the same people we used to be. He can't look down on us anymore." Harry and Rome were itching to do the same. They tagged along. But when the three of them went to find Stephen to brag that the Cassidy family had joined the Fallon family, he didn't seem to care. "What's the big deal? The Fallon family belongs to me." That was the same family they had been so proud becoming a part of, and Stephen was claiming that it was his. He could brag about anything, but not this. They took turns scolding him. Dale was watching silently from the side. He spoke up when he couldn't stand it anymore. "Mr. Adams is telling the truth. The Fallon family is his. I can prove his statement because I'm—" Harry interrupted him mid-sentence and pointed at him rudely. "Shut it. You're just an old man guarding the gates. What do you know? You're intruding on our conversation. What are you waiting for? Get out of here. This doesn't concern you." Dale was at a loss for words. He didn't know if he should be surprised or angry. When he was staying with the aristocrats, no one dared to look down on him. But now, a couple of outsiders who weren't even half his age were doing just that. He'd decided to follow the sovereign because of his strength. But what were Harry, Rebecca, and Rome capable of to subdue him in the same way? The fury in Dale's expression was obvious, but Harry didn't notice. A mere security guard wasn't worth his attention. "I'm warning you now, Stephen. Don't make such outrageous claims again." "You'd better be careful," Rome echoed. "If I hear you say that again, I'll make it so that you'll be bedridden for the rest of your life." Rebecca turned away. "Let's go." Stephen sensed Dale's murderous aura and signaled for him to calm down. Dale did as he was told and dispersed his aura. When Harry, Rome, and Rebecca passed by him, they gave him a contemptuous look. "Know your place, old man. If you want to live longer, mind your own business." He was once again rendered speechless. He never expected to work for the sovereign, but that was one thing. This was another altogether. He couldn't believe that a few brats were trying to teach him a lesson. His disbelief was quickly turning into anger, and he couldn't act out of line without Stephen's permission. "That was infuriating," Dale said through clenched teeth, glaring at Harry, Rebecca, and Rome's backs as they sauntered out the gates. "How do you put up with this?" "Don't let it get to you," Stephen said. "They're naive and immature. You're their elder. It's a waste of time to compete with them. Don't worry, there'll be plenty of chances to deal with them later." Dale felt slightly better after hearing that. Stephen's priority was to uproot the hostile forces in their country. After taking control of the Fallon family, Aston made a breakthrough in his investigation. Right after Harry, Rebecca, and Rome left, he came to report to Stephen. "We've made significant progress. We've intercepted the communication records between Adler Robinson and Vindictus." "What were they discussing over the phone?" "They're cautious, so they were careful not to leave any traces behind. We were only able to intercept a few of their calls. They're about to take action for the third time." "I'm assuming that their third operation concerns the drug?" "Yes, they're targeting the people on the list that was aired on TV," Aston said. He played the recording for Stephen. "Their first operation was to steal the research from Mirage Island," Aston explained. "Their second operation was to eliminate the commander-in-chief and general of the army to deal a big blow to the country. Their third operation is to obtain a sample of the drug. They've failed twice already, and Adler isn't pleased. Vindictus plans to gain his trust through his third operation." "They never give up, do they? Who do you think they'll target?" Stephen asked. He wasn't the only one who'd received the drug. Lionel, Kylan, Sylvie, and many others had received a sample as well. It would be impossible for Vindictus to steal from everyone. They would most likely narrow down their options and target the weakest person on the list. Aston and Noor were deep in thought. If they were Vindictus, who would they target? Suddenly, they looked up at Stephen. He laughed. "What's with the look on your faces? You think I'm their target?" "It's highly likely," Aston replied. "Most of the people on the list are either heavily guarded or difficult to catch off guard. If anything happens to them, it'll cause a huge wave of public opinion. But you're different. That makes sense. I am different. I'm disabled, and I don't have any connection with the military anymore. People think the only reason I received the drug was because of my contributions in the past. If they target me, no one would pay too much attention. They're clever. It'll be easier to deal with them now that we know what they're up to. You are the easiest target, but that doesn't mean they don't have their own concerns, Aston said. After they failed to kill Kylan and Sylvie, they found out that the Sovereign was staying in the district. As long as you're here, they may decide to switch targets. But Mr. Adams can't leave the district, Nor pointed out. If he leaves, who are they going to target? Stephen wasn't worried. There's an easy solution. If we let them know that the Sovereign isn't in the district anymore, there'll be nothing for them to worry about. Not in the district? Aston asked. By that you mean, we'll just need to find someone to replace me. Stephen gestured to Dale. And what a coincidence, I have the perfect substitute by my side. Aston and Nor turned to look at Dale. He was indeed the perfect substitute. The Sovereign was known for his unfathomable strength, and Vindictus's first 2 operations had failed because of him. They wouldn't be fooled if a normal person pretended to be the Sovereign. But Dale was different. His martial arts were even more profound than Nor's. He wasn't as strong as Stephen, but he could be his substitute. No one would doubt him. Dale, who'd been listening quietly, did not see this coming. You want me to replace you? He'd been thinking that Stephen would leave him by his side for a while before assigning him a mission. He hadn't expected to be of use so soon, and a substitute at that. Stephen's eyes gleamed. That's right. No one is more suitable for this task than you. What do you say? Want to be my substitute? It hadn't been long since Stephen had taken control of the Fallon family, but in a short time Dale had spent with him, there was still one thing that had stood out to him. Stephen was polite to him even though he was his subordinate. As his elder, Dale couldn't help but feel touched. This was even more so when Stephen was now asking for his opinion rather than forcing it on him. Yes, I accept. I'm your subordinate, so I'll follow your orders. All right then. As the Grand Palace Master of Hellcrown Palace, I'll appoint you the Guardian of the United States. Your status will be equal to the 5 Guardians of the Palace. Do your best for the country. Dale didn't know what to say. He'd spent many years in seclusion in the mountains, and with his level of martial arts, it could be said that he was invincible. There were only a handful of people who could be considered his opponents. During his time in seclusion spent alone, he began to contemplate the meaning of life. It was a lonely existence at the top. What was the point when there was no one on your level to enjoy it with you? Stephen was the first person to have defeated him in a very long time, and today he had been given an official title. Dale felt as if he'd returned to his youth when he was ambitious and had a goal to work towards. The Guardian of the United States. The words rolled off Dale's tongue and had a nice ring to it. Your first mission is to impersonate me, the Sovereign, Stephen instructed. With your abilities, you'll be able to complete this mission with outstanding results. To confuse Vindictus, you'll be making a trip to the Southern military base. Your journey will be high profile, so everyone will know that you've left the district. Nor went into the house and returned with a few items. Dale glanced over, and his eyes widened. It was the Sovereign's uniform, royal mask, imperial sword, and tiger crest. They're for you. Take them, Stephen said. Dale put on the uniform with the coat draped over his shoulders. He wore the mask and held the sword in one hand, and the tiger crest in the other. He looked similar to Stephen during the ceremony. Aston and Nor nodded in approval. He really does look like Mr. Adams. If I didn't know the truth, I would have thought he was the real Sovereign. Stephen continued with his instructions. From now on, you'll be assuming your role as the Sovereign. Issue an order in the name of your position that you'll be inspecting the military base at the southern border and conducting a joint military exercise. To make it sound more credible, Kylan and Sylvie will lead their personal troops to participate, including the guards that were left behind at this villa. Understood, Dale replied. And so, with a command from the Sovereign, Kylan and Sylvie led their troops to the military base at the southern border. At the same time, Dale set off from the district. At a private residence near Annapolis, a group of people were sitting around a conference table. "Have you heard? The Sovereign's leaving the district. Without him around, our operation is sure to succeed." "Don't get ahead of yourself. The Sovereign is cunning. It could be a trick. He might be pretending to leave the district when he's still there." Their excited chattering stopped. That wasn't impossible. "If we're not sure if it's a trap, then let's send our people to the southern military base to investigate," someone suggested. "We'll carry out an assassination attempt. If the Sovereign is killed, then he's fake." "But what if he's the real Sovereign? Our people would have died for nothing." "What's so bad about dying for the greater cause? How many of our people die in the process isn't important. A general's success is built on the withering of 10,000 bones. When we obtain the drug and Adler Robinson's trust, you'll realize that our sacrifices were worth it." At the southern military base, the strongest battalions of the United States were standing at attention. The Armored Cavalry Battalion was led by the four great generals, Kylan's Iron Blood Battalion and Sylvie's Shield Maiden Battalion. They were here because the Sovereign would be holding their first military joint exercise since his appointment. All eyes around the world were on the southern military base. Dale stood on the podium, donning the Sovereign's uniform. His coat fluttered in the wind. He was used to being at the top among the aristocrats, so being in front of tens of thousands of troops didn't unnerve him in the least. His authoritative and confident demeanor resembled the real Sovereign. The imperial sword at his waist and the tiger crest in his hand exuded a powerful aura that contributed to his act. Kylan and Sylvie, who were following the Sovereign from behind, were in awe at his impressive aura. The Sovereign was right in front of them, but they still didn't know his identity, and they'd never seen his true face behind the mask. At the end of the drill, the Sovereign prepared to return to his tent. Kylan and Sylvie followed him. Sylvie was especially curious about the Sovereign's face. At that moment, 10 people in black charged out of the forest, aiming for the Sovereign. They were so fast that Kylan and Sylvie couldn't react fast enough to block their attacks. Their assailants were expert-level grandmasters. Kylan and Sylvie couldn't fend them off on their own, but the Sovereign didn't need their help. Their enemy dropped to the ground one after another. Dale didn't even use that much strength. He wasn't the #1 martial artist in the Fallon family for nothing. He'd expected them, and that made things easier. He guessed that these people had been sent by Vindictus to test if he was the real Sovereign. Dale hadn't killed him. He'd left them alive on purpose, hoping to get some information out of them. "Restrain them," he ordered. He would be interrogating them himself. Just then, the 10 grandmasters convulsed and coughed up blood. Then they stopped moving. Sylvie examined their bodies and found a small pouch of poison inside their mouths. They were all wearing masks. She reached out to remove one of them, but it was secure like it was glued to their face. She was reminded of the time in the district when the Sovereign had forcefully removed one of their masks. The face underneath was deformed beyond recognition. "Bury them," Dale instructed. "We should investigate their identities," Sylvie urged. "It's none of your business," Dale said. When she opened her mouth to say something else, he interrupted her. "They came for me. I'll investigate. The rest of you should focus on your responsibilities. This is not within the scope of your authority. Don't interfere." At Vindictus's private residence near Annapolis, another meeting was being held. "It's been confirmed. The Sovereign's at the southern border." 10 expert-level grandmasters were killed instantly. Who else but the Sovereign would be capable of that? It's a shame that they were killed, but their deaths provided us with valuable intel. The Sovereign's not in the district. This is our chance to take the drug from the former commander. Sylvie withdrew her guard, so she left at his home. There's nothing stopping us. This time we'll definitely succeed. There's no time to lose. Let's take action immediately. A group of members from Vindictus sneaked into Washington, D.C., heading for the former commander's villa. Meanwhile, at the southern military base, the joint military drill had long since ended. Kylan and Sylvie were still together. Kylan hadn't gotten over his shock at witnessing the Sovereign's martial arts after the drill. He had taken down 10 expert-level grandmasters in the blink of an eye. "I didn't know the Sovereign was so incredible. Many of the elders from the aristocratic families can compare to him. He's become stronger since the last time we met. He has, but don't you feel like he's a little different from last time? Sylvie asked. How so? I don't know. It's my intuition. I have a feeling that the sovereign we met today isn't the same person we met last time in the district. Kylan did a sweep of their surroundings. No one was around. He lowered his voice. General Estrella, there are some matters that can't be casually discussed out in the open. Think about the sovereign's status and his martial arts. It's impossible for anyone to impersonate him. Sylvie glared at him. Why are you so nervous? I was just telling you my thoughts. A beat of silence passed between them. Sylvie gestured to the sovereign's tent. Kylan, don't you want to see his face? You want to sneak into his tent? Kylan asked in disbelief. I don't think that's a good idea. He made it clear that no one is allowed to enter his tent without permission. It'll be over for us if he catches us. To be honest, Kylan was also curious about the sovereign's face, but he never took off his mask when he was in public, so no one knew what he looked like. Are you sure you don't want to go? Sylvie asked patiently. Think about it carefully. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It won't come again. Her words were so convincing that Kylan grew restless. It was rare to be near the sovereign's private space, and it was hard to imagine that he kept his mask on when he was there by himself. If Kylan didn't take this chance, there was no telling when the next opportunity would be. He was still hesitating, so Sylvie pretended to leave by herself. If you don't want to come with me, then I'll go alone. Not even 2 steps later, he called her back. Wait, I'll come with you. In the end, Kylan's curiosity won over his rationality. The sovereign was too mysterious. He needed answers. They sneaked towards the sovereign's tent and peered through the gap at the entrance, just in time to see him take off his mask. It was the middle of the night, and their surroundings were dim, but the moonlight was enough for them to see his face clearly. Kylan and Sylvie exchanged glances. The sovereign's appearance was different from what they'd imagined. He was an elderly man with youthful features. All this time, they'd been thinking he was a young man. Who's there? The sovereign turned around and released a wave of energy towards them. A gust of wind slammed into Kylan and Sylvie's faces as the energy shot past them, barely missing their necks by an inch. They scrambled to their feet and ran back the way they came. They didn't stop until they realized that the sovereign wasn't chasing them. Kylan leaned against a tree, trying to catch his breath. One simple attack contained so much force. Sylvie touched her neck, remembering their close encounter with death. We would have been killed if we didn't dodge in time. Kylan scowled at her. I told you it was a bad idea, but you insisted on dragging me with you. I didn't drag anyone, Sylvie shot back. You agreed to come with me. Anyway, I didn't expect the sovereign to be an elder. I thought he was around our age. Wouldn't it be weird if he were young? Kylan asked. Could a young man really achieve that level of martial arts? Sylvie thought about it. What he said made sense. You're right. The world outside is different from where we used to live. It's vast, and there's an abundance of resources. There are mysterious organizations scattered across the land. The aristocrats could be inferior to them. The sovereign might come from one of those organizations unknown to the public. With what we know so far, that's the only explanation, Kylan agreed. Tonight could have been dangerous, but what matters is that we're alive. And most importantly, we're the only ones who've seen the sovereign's face. While Kylan and Sylvie were feeling triumphant from their successful endeavor, Dale was a bundle of nerves. The sovereign's identity was top secret. Aside from the high-ranking officials of the country, no one knew his true face. But Dale had been exposed. Kylan and Sylvie had seen him. This was the first mission that Stephen had given to him, but he was on the verge of failure. He wasted no time and gave Stephen a call to report on what had happened. It's fine. Kylan and Sylvie have never seen me as the sovereign. There's nothing to worry about. Dale was relieved he hadn't thrown a wrench in Stephen's plans. As for Stephen, according to Aston's intel, Vindictus was sending their people to steal the drug from his villa soon. Their operation began tonight. He could already sense their presence surrounding the house. It wasn't time yet, so he waited patiently for them to make their move. At midnight, the members from Vindictus finally began their ambush. They crossed the yard under the cover of night, pried open the door, and slipped inside. They made their way through the darkness and found a bedroom at the end of the hall. They kicked open the door with the intention of finishing the job in one strike, but when they rushed in, they found a young man in a wheelchair sitting in front of the window with his back facing them. He turned around. It was the former commander. Stephen opened a brocade box, revealing a vial of liquid inside. "I've been waiting for you. Are you here for this?" "It's for the best that you're aware. Hand it over and we'll spare you." "Sure, here you go." Stephen held out the box. No one reached for it. They hadn't expected this turn of events. Even if the former commander was disabled, they didn't think it would be this easy to steal the box from him. They weren't prepared for him to generously hand over the drug. There had to be a reason. It couldn't be this simple. The leader of the group's mind raced as he tried to make sense of the situation. The drug was right in front of him. He could reach out and their mission would be accomplished. But what did Stephen mean when he said he'd been waiting for them? Did he know that they would be here tonight to steal the drug? If that were true, then their plan would have been exposed from the get-go. The rest of the group could sense the gears in the leader's head turning. They grew nervous the longer he hesitated. "What are you waiting for?" Stephen took the initiative to place the box in the hands of the person closest to him. "Take it. It's a miracle drug. Isn't this what you came for?"
she asked. "What did you do?" Solo scratched his head.
The man looked at the box and shifted his gaze to the leader. The leader gave him a nod, signaling for him to keep it. "It doesn't matter
One person who did know the answers began as he
if you take it or not. None of you will be leaving this place alive." The group tensed, preparing for a direct confrontation. The former commander had a fearsome reputation that terrified the enemy with his existence alone. That included them. They had just realized they'd been caught in his trap. "Don't be so nervous." Stephen smiled and pointed to his wheelchair. "I'm injured. What could I possibly do to you? I'm just bluffing." They looked skeptical, so he continued. "I was waiting for you to give you the drug. I have one request. I hope you can spare my life. I'm already in this condition. Whether I'm alive or dead makes no difference." The group was convinced. They believed in his performance. "You've made our job easier, so we'll spare you." Their original mission was to kill the former commander and steal the drug, but he'd handed the drug over without resisting and was even pleading for his life. They started to mock him. It's gratifying to see how low the former commander's fallen. He's begging for mercy. If the people who respected him so much in the past found out he's become like this, what would they think? What former commander? He's just a waste of space who didn't live up to his name. If he was that capable, he wouldn't have offered the drug in exchange for his survival. He's a joke. With that, they slipped out of the house and into the night. They weren't aware that the moment they stepped out the door, someone followed them secretly. While they were talking to Stephen, he'd placed a miniature tracker on their clothes. From his previous encounters with them, he knew that they would kill themselves with poison if he forced them into a corner. Their masks were fused to their faces, so it was impossible to investigate their identities. So Stephen had come up with a plan that didn't involve those two outcomes. He would use the drug as bait, pretend to be afraid of death, and lure them into this trap. And it worked. Noor appeared as the masked group left. "Have you sent your people to follow them?" Stephen asked. "Yes, they're following them from a distance. Even if we lose them, we'll be able to locate them with the trackers you've placed." "Good work. Vindictus is cautious. They wouldn't have expected me to track them down. When we find them, I'll deal with them personally." Noor was looking forward to it. "If it's you, they'll be taken care of in no time. They're no match for you." The group from Vindictus didn't notice the trackers on their person as they made their way back to Maryland to reconvene with their supervisors at the courtyard near the city. On the surface, it appeared to be a private residence, but it was actually one of the many strongholds of their organization. They entered the room where their superiors were waiting for them. The superiors' masks were different from theirs. It represented their higher position. One of them was codenamed Luther. Did you get it? The leader of the group held out the box. Yes, it's here. Luther lifted the lid and inspected the vial inside. It was real. You did well. The higher-ups will reward you handsomely. What about the former commander? Did you get rid of him? About that. No, he's alive. Luther frowned. And why is he alive? The leader of the group rushed to explain. The situation's like this. I see. So the former commander's fallen so low that he begged you to spare him. I wonder how the officials would feel if they knew about this. I wouldn't have believed it if I didn't see it happen with my own eyes. It's ironic. So many people were afraid of him in the past, but now he's the one who's afraid. Luther laughed. You did very well. Spread the news and let the country know what kind of life the former commander's living. The once respected hero of their hearts is begging for mercy. This is even better than killing him off. I guarantee he'll be on the headlines tomorrow morning. The group left to get it done. As for the rest of you, follow me. Adler and our boss have been waiting a long time for the drug. We should give it to them as soon as possible. While they were talking, Stephen was hiding on the roof, eavesdropping on their conversation and keeping an eye on their every move. He's planning to deal with them when the drug changed hands, but after hearing that Luther had a boss, he decided to leave them alone for now. He would make his move after the mastermind showed himself. The next morning, just like Luther had expected, all the major newspapers and mainstream media outlets reported on the former commander exchanging the miracle drug for his life. A majority of the media agencies promoted their news with an eye-catching title consisting of 5 words: Selling the Country for Glory. The official media outlets published articles filled with criticisms of the former commander. It was a statement that confirmed the authenticity of the gossip. Heated discussions broke out across the country. Everyone bashed the former commander. The dignified former commander-in-chief gave up the miracle drug to the enemy in order to survive. This is detrimental to the United States and the world. He sold the drug to keep his past honor. He's a bad example for the people. How unfortunate for the U.S. The streets were filled with criticisms attacking the former commander. There were quite a number of people who took part in protests, carrying banners that read, "Punish the traitor." The voices that called the former commander to be punished were louder than the waves of criticism in the past. In the eyes of the people, he was a humiliation to the country. At the governor of Washington, D.C.'s residence, many elders who were respected among the people were requesting for him to take action. For the sake of the people, we'd like to ask you to immediately arrest the former commander. He's a traitor. The officials distributed the drug to those who contributed to the country, but for the sake of his own survival, the former commander gave it away to a foreign country. This cannot be tolerated. But that decision wasn't up to the governor. Regardless of how far he'd fallen from glory, he was still the former commander-in-chief of the U.S. The only thing he could do was calm them down and report it to Annapolis. He was just the governor of the district. He wasn't qualified to put the former commander's name on the wanted list. Protests were taking place everywhere in the country, demanding for the former commander to be brought to justice. A single stone had stirred up 1,000 ripples. In one night, the former commander had become the object of the people's disdain. When Adler received the news, he ordered his subordinates to release insider information, claiming that Warhawk's gates were open for the former commander at any time. If the United States didn't want him, he would always be welcome here. The country of Mifflin was Warhawk's ally. They followed Warhawk's footsteps and made a statement that the former commander was their friend. The Queen was ready to welcome him and award him a title should he ever decide to become one of their people. Many other countries overseas made similar statements, causing the people of the U.S. to request a more severe punishment for the former commander. The chain reaction across the world made the claim that he'd sold out his country more credible. The situation was getting out of hand, so Aston immediately reported the situation to Stephen. Mr. Adams, public opinion is against you. Vindictus is trying to tarnish your reputation. If this continues, the entire country will be scorning you. It'll be fine. When we uproot Vindictus, the truth will come to light. My reputation will be restored then. Stephen's words deepened Aston's respect for him. He never let public opinion get to him. He was grounded, and he always had the big picture in mind. The Cassidy family didn't have his talent for foresight. They were in an uproar when they found out that Stephen had given the drug in exchange for his life. Helen slammed her cane on the floor. He's a disgrace to the country. Who could have known that he had more than one vial of the drug? Harry said. The country's taking such great care of him, but he betrayed their trust. If it were me, I would have chosen death, Rome declared. I feel embarrassed to be related to someone like him, Rebecca said. When we go outside, we have to pretend like we don't know him. The Cassidy family had never been fond of Stephen to begin with. Although his identity as the commander-in-chief had been confirmed, Kylan had taken over his position. He was disabled and had nothing going for him. Incidents like these made the Cassidy family detest him even more. After a round of denouncement, Helen shifted her attention to Kim and her daughter. Valeria, you'd better remember what happened today. Your father is a good-for-nothing traitor. Don't acknowledge him anymore. Do you understand? Kim frowned. What are you teaching my daughter? Not satisfied? Then how do you want me to teach her? Everyone is criticizing Stephen. I'm doing this for Valeria's sake, so she won't be implicated by that father of hers. And I'm not done. You'll be cutting off contact with him too. Those in the Cassidy family are not allowed to have a connection with a traitor. Grandma, you can't make these decisions on your own. Stephen's not that kind of person. Mommy's right. Daddy's not like that. Look at her, Rebecca said. She's so fierce for her young age. Who do you think taught her to be that way? Why are you still protecting that bastard? Even if you don't want to believe it, the truth is plastered all over the headlines. With so much criticism going around, he would have run away the first chance he got, Rome said. There are so many other countries out there offering to accept him with open arms. Mifflin is even planning on granting him a title of nobility. Stephen wouldn't do that, Kim said firmly. Why wouldn't he? Rebecca asked. How do you know anyway? Do you think he'll tell you before running away? The whole country is ridiculing him. He probably left quietly during the commotion. He's not the type to run away, Kim insisted. If you're so sure, then why don't we pay him a visit and see if he's still home? Harry suggested. I agree, Rebecca said. Rome chimed in. I agree too. Harry flashed a smug smile at Kim. Want to lead the way? Kim believed that Stephen would never run away. Fine, let's go. They set off for the villa. When they arrived, they saw an elderly man standing by the gates. After Dale returned from the southern border, Stephen asked him to guard the house. Kim had never seen him before, and from the looks of it, no one else was around except him. Who's that? Did Stephen sell the house? No, that's the security guard Stephen hired to guard the gates, Rebecca said. That was news to Kim. She didn't know why Stephen would hire another security guard when Sylvie had assigned her people to patrol the house. Do you still think Stephen confides in you? Rebecca asked. You didn't even know there was another member of your family. Dale stopped them when they approached the gates. What are you doing here? He hadn't forgotten the last time Harry, Rebecca, and Rome came over and taught him a lesson. If it weren't for Stephen, he would have been the one to teach them a lesson. Is your eyesight failing you? Rebecca gestured to Kim. This is Stephen's wife. Dale glanced at Kim, skeptical of Rebecca's claims. Hello, sir. I'm Kim Cassidy. I'm Stephen's wife. Dale was impressed with her manners. She wasn't at all like those rude brats standing next to her. He stepped to the side and held out his hand. Please, go in. Kim went inside with Harry, Rebecca, and Rome. There was no one in the house. Stephen was nowhere to be seen. I told you, Stephen ran away, Rebecca said. We weren't lying to you. What else would he do at a time like this? Rome asked. He sold his country to keep his past glory. He wouldn't wait around now that his crime is exposed. He betrayed the country and its people, Harry added. They spoke patriotically as if they were advocates for the country's officials, but Kim heard none of it. She searched every corner of the house carefully, including under the bed. Rebecca watched her from a distance. Kim, don't waste your energy. Look, Stephen's wheelchair is still here. Isn't that proof that he ran off in a panic? He didn't have time to bring his wheelchair with him. Kim ignored her and continued her search. After circling the house multiple times and still finding nothing, she gave up. She decided to ask the elderly man at the gates. Do you know where Stephen went? I don't know about that, Dale replied, but he's not in the district. Rebecca sneered. Hear that? Our guess was right. He ran away. His guard admitted it himself. Dale gave her an incredulous look. When did he say that? She had a talent for putting words in other people's mouths. Stephen's whereabouts were confidential. He hadn't told him where he'd be going, but even if he knew, he would never tell them. Rebecca looked at Kim triumphantly. Anything else you want to say? The facts are all around us. Stephen is a traitor. I don't want to associate myself with a traitor, Rome said. From now on, Stephen has nothing to do with me. If I ever see him again, I'll teach him a lesson. Count me in, Harry said. Kim believed in Stephen. He would never sell out his country, but she didn't have the evidence to prove it. I said it before and I'll say it again. He's not a traitor. She left without waiting for them. Harry, Rebecca, and Rome didn't care. They'd accomplished what they'd come to do. They went home to inform DeAndre. He was furious upon hearing the news. To think that someone like him used to be the commander. Whether he takes back his position or not in 3 months, he won't be seeing this family again. Subsequently, Wayne received the news as well. He was as angry as DeAndre. Wayne had been elated when the Cassidy family gave him the miracle drug, but he'd almost lost his life when the Sovereign found out. And Stephen had given that valuable drug away to a foreign country to save his life. He didn't live up to his reputation as the famed former commander. I have to report this to the Sovereign. Rachel stopped him. Wait, Dad, I don't think you need to tell him. The entire country knows about it. How could he have not heard? He's probably thinking of a way to make him pay for selling out his country. Yes, but he's our leader. We could report it to him and prove our loyalty. Rachel considered it and agreed with him. She followed Wayne to the villa to meet the Sovereign. What are you two doing here? Dale asked when he saw them. Mr. Dale, is the Sovereign not home? We have something important to report. You can head back. He already knows what you want to tell him. Wayne pretended to be surprised. He already knows? He's truly a master of strategy. That's enough. Stop flattering him. Leave if you don't have anything important to say. If he needs you to do anything, he'll let you know. Also, don't do something like this again. Wayne felt a little ashamed that Dale had seen through his intentions. I understand. We'll take our leave. News of the former commander's traitorous acts gained traction. Aside from the waves of criticism in the U.S., the countries overseas added fuel to the fire. They actively tried to discredit his reputation. Mifflin gave him the title of Count, as if they were waiting for him to take up the position. Warhawk announced that they'd prepared a manor for him. At Devil Hall's hideout, Raphael was having a meeting with the Right Envoy of Light. With the assistance of the countries overseas, the former commander has no foothold in the country. We should join in. Spread some gossip to the media agencies. Tell them that the reason Devil Hall was able to make a comeback was because the former commander showed mercy, and let us go the first time around to ensure that the U.S. was always in danger. If he didn't have any more battles to fight, there'd be no contribution to achieve. The Right Envoy chuckled. This is even better than what they're doing abroad. Soon, another piece of news swept the country. After learning of the truth behind Devil Hall's comeback, the people of the U.S. criticized the former commander even more harshly than before. Several countries overseas banded together to make things worse. They posted a picture of the passport they'd prepared for the former commander to prepare for his arrival. They claimed that he could use this passport to freely enter and exit any place in their country. As the days passed, the self-proclaimed patriots of the United States gathered in Washington, D.C. with the goal of finding the former commander and denouncing that traitor. Multiple groups surrounded the Cassidy family's residence. They didn't do anything but loiter menacingly, because the Cassidy family was now part of the Fallon family. They didn't have the courage to confront them, so they intimidated them from afar. The Addams family wasn't so lucky. They became the main target. Angry citizens protested at the entrance, waving their banners in the air. At the Cassidy family's residence, Kim was looking out the window on the second floor. There were groups of people criticizing Stephen everywhere on the streets. "Stephen, where did you go?" she murmured. As much as Kim wanted him to come back, anywhere would be safer than here. She didn't know what the people would do to him if he returned when indignation was at an all-time high. While the world was denouncing Stephen, he was tracking Vindictus down, working hard to ensure the people's peaceful lives. He followed the tracking devices all the way to Annapolis. Stephen hadn't expected them to have to set up their headquarters near the big city. He'd caught up to them, so there was no rush in dealing with them. He would assess the situation before taking action. He and Noor hid in the shadows, waiting for the right moment. Luther and his subordinates didn't go in immediately. They were standing outside the building because their informant was giving them an update on the recent state of public opinion. Leaving him alive was the best decision, Luther said proudly. Having him experience the people against him is much worse than death. Several people came out of the building to meet them. Luther and his subordinates gave them a secret signal before they were allowed to go inside. From Stephen and Noor's observation, the secret signal wasn't fixed. It changed every time they entered and exited. Vindictus was a cautious group. The secret signal was required for everyone, even those who were on the same side. Naturally, Stephen and Noor didn't have any secret signals at their disposal, but that couldn't stop them. They were skilled in stealth and snuck their way inside without anyone noticing. Vindictus's strict regulations went beyond their imaginations. After Luther and his subordinates made it past the entrance, there were subsequent checkpoints when another secret signal was required. Each one was different. They gradually progressed through each checkpoint and reached the innermost area of the building. The guards here were wearing silver masks, while the ones monitoring the entrance had been wearing bronze masks. "They have a strict classification system," Noor observed, keeping his voice low. "The color and design of each mask are different. Those with bronze masks are the small fries, responsible for guarding the entrance. The ones with silver masks have a slightly higher status and are responsible for guarding more important places. There are more guards up ahead. Their masks are gold. They're the core of the security team. Luther's talking to them, which means he holds a high position in the organization and has the authority to come in contact with the higher-ups." Luther finally entered a room deep inside the building. A woman wearing a mask was sitting at the head of the table. He greeted her by her code name, Gwen. "Formalities aren't necessary. Have you completed your mission?" Luther placed the brocade box on the table. "Yes, I have the drug, and I took the opportunity to ruin the former commander's reputation." "Well done," Gwen said. "Adler will be pleased. When our boss returns, he'll reward you for your efforts." "The boss isn't in the city?" "He went to the island state. He'll be back in 3 to 5 days. As the second in command, he left me in charge." Luther was disappointed because the boss wasn't here to witness his contributions to the organization. Stephen was also disappointed. He'd been planning to uproot Vindictus on this trip, but who would have thought that the boss wasn't in the country? If he made a move now and captured everyone who was present, he would be missing the key player. If their boss went to the island state, that meant that Vindictus had a close relationship with them and Warhawk. The two countries were supporting their organization. Before Silas died, he'd refused to reveal the mastermind. It was evident there was more to the story than met the eye. Devil Hall's reappearance was closely connected to Vindictus. Although the boss wasn't there, Stephen's trip wasn't in vain. He'd discovered the second in command of their organization. Nor met his gaze in the darkness, silently asking if he should make his move. Stephen shook his head, signaling for him not to act rashly. There were still secrets that had yet to be uncovered. "If the boss isn't here, are you going to contact Adler in his place?" Luther asked. "Yes," Gwen replied. "The boss has already discussed this with Adler. He knows that I'll be delivering the drug." She inspected the vial in the box. "Are you certain this is the drug we're looking for?" "Yes. The former commander personally gave us the drug in exchange for his life. I don't think he would have given us a fake. Plus, the drug is one of a kind. It's difficult to replicate." "Then I'll trust your judgment. The future is hard to predict. I never once thought that the famed commander-in-chief, who was capable of making the countries overseas afraid with his title alone, would be reduced to this state. He's like everyone else now. He's afraid of death and will do anything to survive. He's a disgrace to the people who used to respect him." Gwen closed the box. "I'm in a good mood today. Adler's confidants are in Annapolis. I'll be meeting with him later. You can come with me. I'll give you a chance to meet with Warhawk's big shots." "Thank you. I'm in your debt." 2 hours later, Luther and his subordinates followed Gwen out of the building. To decrease their chances of their headquarters being exposed, they would be meeting Adler's trusted aides at a different location. Stephen and Nor followed them to the outskirts of Annapolis. Instead of entering the city, Gwen and Luther made their way to a wealthy neighborhood where many rich foreigners lived. The foreigners had taken over this area, so they'd have a place to stay when they visited the U.S. Their businesses were located abroad. Few residents stayed here for an extended period of time. Most of the houses were empty. Gwen had chosen this place specifically because it was inconspicuous and ideal for a confidential discussion. It was common for foreigners to come and go from the neighborhood, so they wouldn't be drawing attention to themselves. She was meticulous and overly cautious. She'd sent her people to scout the area 3 days in advance and informed Adler of their meeting place after confirming that it would be safe. Gwen led Luther and his subordinates into one of the mansions. They didn't notice Stephen and Nor watching from afar and listening in on their conversations while they waited for Adler's confidants to arrive. "This is a big blow to the U.S., Luther said. "They never would have seen this coming. Their well-respected commander shamed his people and his country." Gwen nodded. "What's important is that we have the drug. Adler has multiple businesses overseas. One of them involves research in the medical field. He'll be able to extract the ingredients and develop a replica. It won't be unique to the U.S. anymore. The top-secret miracle drug will lose its value." Luther laughed. "We're all sinners of the U.S. Every step towards their downfall makes things more exciting." "Sinners of the U.S.?" Stephen thought. Every member of Vindictus wore masks, and if they were removed, there were only disfigured faces underneath. But from what they were saying, they were fairly well-known criminals who would have been recognized if their faces weren't fused to the masks. Hatred shone in Gwen's eyes. "I used to live a good life. My family was wealthy, and I had everything I wanted. But I lost it all because of my father's corruption. I fell to rock bottom from the proud little princess life I used to live. I became a homeless child who no one cared about on the streets. This country's flawed." "You're not the only one," Luther said. "I could have lived a luxurious life, but that was ruined after I killed a few ordinary people. The country held me accountable. My family was persecuted, including the elders. Without the elders holding the family together, everyone else became a target. The country made us sinners." Stephen and Nor looked at each other. From their conversation, it sounded like Vindictus was an organization of criminals from the U.S. In particular, the core members. Once upon a time, they enjoyed the prestige of the prominent families that ordinary people could never experience. They abused their power and authority to commit crimes and were punished by the law. They couldn't accept becoming criminals, and they never once thought about why they'd ended up like this. They irrationally blamed the country and made them the target of their hatred. Their strong feelings deepened and accumulated over the years, and eventually they began to see the U.S. as their lifelong enemy. They gloated over the country's struggles, not caring if it caused the deaths of innocents and their compatriots. Even the lives of their colleagues were worth nothing to them. The more Stephen heard, the more he detested their organization. He knew their organization had been founded on some degree of hatred, but he didn't know it was so baseless. He could get rid of them right now, but he had to get to the boss to get to the heart of the organization. And after overhearing their conversation, Stephen could head back and investigate. With this new lead, he could easily find Luther and Gwen's family background. Their masks were glued to their faces, but their conversation exposed their identities. "That's why we're here," Gwen said with a smile. "Of course, there's also our boss. He's never idle. He's devising a grand plan to deal the country a fatal blow. He went to the island state to prepare." Luther's interest was piqued. "A fatal blow? What's the plan?" "Are you curious? If our plan succeeds, the people will lose their confidence in the country. Chaos and discord will surge from within, and the country will destroy itself. Our boss went to the island state because it was the right timing, the right location, and they were the right people. The aristocrats coming outside was the catalyst for his plan. They threw the world into chaos, which gave us an opportunity. If the country were peaceful, there would be no place for Vindictus." Their organization was more ambitious than Stephen had imagined. He was glad he'd tracked them down before their plan was put into motion. But what exactly were they planning to do? Luther had the same question. "What is our boss's plan?" The palace had wreaked havoc on the island state. They had yet to recover from the damages. Was the boss recruiting them as an ally? Gwen's smile slipped from her face. "Our boss's plans are top secret. Even I wouldn't dare to ask him. Do you still want to know?" Luther hurriedly shook his head. "No, of course not." Stephen frowned. Gwen wasn't the only cautious member of the organization. The secrecy in the internal hierarchy was strict. Luther and Gwen were core members of Vindictus, but they weren't qualified to know the details of their boss's plan. As the atmosphere turned tense, their subordinate reported that Adler's confidants had arrived. Gwen and Luther stood up to welcome them. A middle-aged man with a potbelly led his people into the room. After some small talk, Gwen gave him the drug. Adler's confidant rolled the vial in his hand, examining the liquid inside. "Mr. Adler will be pleased. You've obtained a valuable item. He's prepared a reward for you." He ordered his subordinates to open up a map and circled one particular area. "This is the Atlantic coast. There are 10 islands in the area. All of them are Mr. Adler's personal property. They will be his gift to you." Gwen thanked them profusely. Because their organization didn't have a base, they had been moving from place to place to avoid being discovered. The 10 islands from Adler were far away from the U.S. They could plot in secret without worrying about being found. The islands were big enough for them to build a small country. "Mr. Adler knows that our boss is in the island state. He's interested in your plan. If it benefits him, you may ask him for assistance. He'll do his best to help." "Thank you," Gwen said. "I'll pass on his message to my boss." "Okay, there's nothing else to discuss. We'll be leaving first. We have the drug. Mr. Adler will want to see it as soon as possible." Gwen and Luther stood up and walked Adler's confidants out of the building. "Take care." Stephen hadn't intervened, but he'd recorded their conversation as evidence of Warhawk's crime. He asked Aston to send his people to follow Gwen, Luther, and Adler's confidants. There were no leads to the identity of the mastermind behind Vindictus. The only point they could confirm was that he was planning an earth-shattering conspiracy. Stephen didn't want to alert the enemy. He needed to investigate and find him quickly to put a stop to his plan. "Nor, let's head back," Stephen said after leaving the building.
We need to prepare for any unexpected situations. What about the drug? It's not easy to replicate. Was it real? Yeah, it's the real thing. What? If you let them leave with the drug, wouldn't that be exposing our country's secrets to the enemy? A team of scientists had worked painstakingly over the years to develop the miracle drug. Their efforts would be in vain if Warhawk obtained the drug. Hellcrown Palace possessed half of the world's wealth and influence, but the 5 guardians were from the United States. They cared about the country. Stephen's strong desire to protect the people and peace was one of the reasons they decided to follow him when he first became the Grand Palace Master. Warhawk's technology is superior to ours, Stephen explained. They would have noticed if we gave them a fake. Our plans would go up in smoke if they found out. Noor still looked conflicted. Don't worry so much, Noor. The drug is real, but it's not the final product. What do you mean? They say the drug is a groundbreaking product. It wasn't easy to develop. During the research and development phase, countless experiments were carried out. There were a lot of defective products left behind. I contacted the Leviathan unit for a vial of the defective drug. It looks the same as the final product, but the constitution and effect are different. They could deconstruct the components, but it wouldn't give them the final result. Even if they do succeed, it'll take them at least 5 to 10 years. They don't have the patience for that. Noor nodded in understanding. As expected of the Grand Palace Master, Stephen had accounted for everything. I get it. When they realize that the drug isn't perfect, they'll think you fooled them. They won't waste their resources and time to study a defective product. Before Luther, Gwen, and Adler's confidants could get too far, Stephen called Wes, Aston, and Sorov over to discuss countermeasures. Vindictus was an extremist organization that didn't care about the consequences as long as their goal was achieved. And their goal concerned the fate of the U.S. Wes, send someone to investigate the situation in the island state. Based on Luther and Gwen's conversation, the real mastermind behind Vindictus was in the island state, planning a scheme that would overturn the country. This was an important lead they couldn't overlook. Understood. Wes was left to carry out Stephen's order. Aston, I asked Wayne to submit a document from the Fallon family's profiles. Did you receive it? Yes. The Fallon family is huge, so it took some time to thoroughly investigate them. There are around 100,000 members. None of them are connected to the factions we're looking for. All right, we'll put their skills to good use. What's going on with the public? Any changes? Unfortunately, no. It's gotten worse. Vindictus spread rumors about you betraying the country by handing over the drug in exchange for your life. The countries overseas are deliberately fanning the flames. Your reputation has taken a big hit. The people resent you. Aston, Sorov, and Noor looked dejected. Stephen was working hard for the country, but the people were slandering him when they didn't know the truth. Stephen gave them a reassuring smile. It's okay. It's a given for ordinary people to take gossip as the truth. When everything's settled, the misunderstandings will be cleared up. Things will go back to the way it used to be. We should focus on stopping Vindictus. The 3 of them nodded. They could never match up to the Grand Palace Master. After assigning tasks to the rest of the Guardians, Stephen took Noor with him back to Washington, D.C. Dale had been keeping watch while he was gone. He was relieved when he saw Stephen. Mr. Adams, you're finally back. Your house would have been demolished if you came back any later. What's going on? Stephen asked. It's only been a day, but people across the country have been coming to look for you. If you didn't come back, they would have torn down the villa. Most of the troublemakers were normal people. Dale could have easily sent them away, but that would negatively affect Stephen's reputation and make it worse. I understand. Ask Wayne to come over. I have something to discuss. Public opinion was against Stephen, but he didn't think too much of it. His priority was Vindictus because he didn't know the details of their plan. He had to find out soon. Wayne hurried over after Dale contacted him. Sir, I heard you wanted to see me. How can I be of help? There's a major operation that requires your family's participation. Stephen explained his arrangements. Wayne was surprised because the sovereign wanted to mobilize 100,000 people from his family. If he needed such a large force, something serious must have happened. He was curious, but it wasn't his place to ask questions. "I know what you're thinking," Stephen said. "This is an important operation. The faster the deployment, the better. Head back and mobilize your people according to the plan." "I understand." If the sovereign was relying on the Fallon family to carry out the operation, that showed how much he trusted their abilities. They couldn't let him down. When Wayne returned to the Cassidy family's residence, he began to give out orders to Rachel. The Cassidy family was confused to see them so busy, like they were preparing for war. "DeAndre, did something happen to the Fallon family?" Helen asked. "I'm not sure either. Nothing big has happened since Wayne was appointed the head. It looks like they're gathering the family. They're busy, so I'll ask them after they're done." DeAndre's words were the law, so the Cassidy family stood to the side and watched Wayne and Rachel hustle and bustle around the house. Helen glanced at DeAndre and asked after a pause, "We're part of the Fallon family, right?" "Yes, Wayne said so himself. Is there a problem?" "Then shouldn't we also participate?" Coincidentally, Rachel happened to be passing by, and she heard Helen's question. "You want to participate? Then let me ask you, what can the Cassidy family do to help? Is anyone in your family skilled in martial arts? How many grandmasters do you have?" Helen didn't know how to respond. The Cassidy family was a part of the Fallon family, but they were far inferior in terms of capability. They wouldn't have become this famous if it weren't for the Fallon family's name. "Do you get it now?" Rachel asked, proving her point. Helen knew she couldn't get on her bad side. "Yes, I understand. We don't need to participate." "Good. Just do what we tell you to do and don't cause trouble for us. Understood?" Rome took the lead and spoke first. "We understand. We can even be your servants if that's what you want." The rest of the family agreed. Kim was watching from the side, and she was in disbelief. They were offering to be Wayne and Rachel's servants to please them. DeAndre didn't have much of a reaction. As someone who held an important position in the Fallon family, he knew very well that strength and capability were highly valued. Bloodline wasn't all there was to it. The Cassidy family didn't practice martial arts, so there was nothing they could offer to Wayne and Rachel except flattery. Soon, they finished their task. Mobilizing 100,000 members of their family was tiring. They headed to the courtyard to take a break. DeAndre brought the Cassidy family over. Harry moved a comfortable chair to the courtyard. Rebecca brewed a pot of tea and placed a cup on the table. Rome was even more exaggerated. "Mr. Wayne, how are you feeling? If you want, I can give you a massage." Wayne was too tired to care. He lay down on the chair that Harry had brought over and let them do what they wanted. "Wayne, what happened?" DeAndre asked. "Don't tell me this is also confidential." "It is. Please understand. When everything's over, our Fallon family will make a name for ourselves. We'll surpass the other aristocratic families." "Did the officials approve of what you're planning to do?" "They did." Wayne didn't know the details, but that was answer enough for him. "If you succeed, it'll be your greatest achievement since you became the head. I have nothing else to say. I wholeheartedly support you." DeAndre had helped him become the head. Wayne's success was his success. The Cassidy family was also expecting great things from Wayne. Their two families were connected, so the Fallon family's achievements were their achievements. Harry, Rebecca, and Rome took the chance to flatter Wayne some more. "We firmly believe that under your lead, we'll surpass the other aristocratic families in no time. The Fallon family has existed for generations. We, the Cassidy family, are now one of you. We are proud to be part of your family." Kim felt awkward watching them. It was like she was out of tune with the rest of the family. They didn't have an ounce of dignity or shame. The Cassidy family's butler rushed into the courtyard. Miss Helen, Stephen's back. After he finished, he noticed Wayne nearby. He hurriedly greeted him. The Cassidy family was embarrassed by the butler's mistake. After finding Stephen's house empty the last time they visited, Harry, Rebecca, and Rome asked the butler to keep an eye out for him. The butler saw Stephen come back, so he hurried home to report to Helen. He was in such a rush that he unknowingly disturbed Wayne while he was taking a break. The Cassidy family tensed, waiting for Wayne to say something. The flattery would have been for nothing if he got angry. Wayne regarded the butler curiously. Stephen? You mean the former commander? Yes, we didn't know he had 2 vials of the drug. If we knew, we would have brought them both back. Then he wouldn't have traded it to a foreign country to save his own life. He's the scum of the country, Rebecca scorned. Rome joined in. To make matters worse, he's married into our family. Kim tried to defend Stephen, but they didn't give her a chance to be heard. They interrupted her at every word. But it's all kind of strange, Rome said. Didn't Stephen run away? Why did he come back? He probably has an ulterior motive, Rebecca guessed. But that's not important. Since he's back, we should arrest him and hand him over to the government. He sold out the country. That's a crime. Rome gave Wayne a meaningful look. She's right. Arresting Stephen would be considered a great contribution by the Fallon family. I heard there's a lot of people looking for him, Helen said. Kim grew more worried as they ganged up on Stephen. They didn't care if he was innocent or not. They would spin the truth somehow and make him into a criminal. Wayne sat up at Rome's intentional reminder. What you said makes sense. Stephen betrayed his country. The people have a right to punish him. People from around the country are here in the district to capture him, right? They are, Rachel confirmed. We should do something about it before they get to him. Good idea. We'll bring him to the Sovereign and let him deal with this. The Cassidy family looked at Wayne in shock. The Sovereign? As in the divine sovereign of the U.S.? The silence in the courtyard made Wayne realize that he'd unintentionally leaked information because he got too excited. Wayne, have you met the Sovereign? DeAndre asked expectantly. For a moment, Wayne was at a loss of what to do and didn't know how to reply. He couldn't tell his uncle that the Sovereign had taken control of the entire Fallon family. Rachel was quick to react. Dad doesn't just know him. He has a close connection with him. We were mobilizing the family because the Sovereign gave us a mission. He's supporting our family. DeAndre turned to his nephew for confirmation. Wayne followed his daughter's lead. What Rachel said is true. The Sovereign gave us a mission. I kept it from you because it's confidential. Everyone here has to keep this a secret. We understand, the Cassidy family responded. They were proud of their connection to the Fallon family. It was a pleasant surprise to learn that the Sovereign was supporting them. The Sovereign is involved. We'll keep this to ourselves, DeAndre promised. I shouldn't have doubted you. Everything you've done is for the family. I actually wanted to introduce Rachel to the Sovereign, Wayne said, but he's married. He is? They say he's young. He's only in his 20s. He's not just married. He has a child. The puzzled look on DeAndre and the Cassidy family's faces swept Wayne's disappointment away. You didn't know? I suppose this information that the Sovereign only shares with people close to him. Wayne hadn't gotten over his disappointment that the Sovereign was married until now. It felt good to brag about their connection, even if he hadn't taken a liking to the Cassidy family. Sure enough, the Cassidy family began to flatter him again. Only someone as talented as you could have gotten to know the Sovereign. It's precisely because of you that the Sovereign values the Fallon family. Although Wayne enjoyed the compliments, he didn't forget the matter at hand. Rachel, send 5 of our subordinates to arrest Stephen. Stephen was the former commander, but he'd fallen from glory. There was nothing to worry about. Miss Rachel, we can show you the way, Rome offered. Okay, I'll consider this your contribution. Kim hurried to follow them. There was no telling what the Sovereign would do to Stephen. Wayne, Rachel, and the Cassidy family were determined and out to get him. There was no chance for him to escape. She didn't think Stephen would hand over the drug to a foreign country, but the accusations could be proven true even if they were false. It wouldn't be the first time he was framed. Victoria was his mother, and she could be roped into this mess too. The Cassidy family was safe because they were under the protection of the Fallon family. They would be rewarded for capturing Stephen. Natalie and Kyle held Kim back at the door. "Stay here. Don't go with them." She tried to struggle, but they wouldn't let her leave. Meanwhile, the 5 subordinates from the Fallon family followed Rome, Rebecca, and Harry to Stephen's villa. The closer they were, the more confused they became. Because this was near the Sovereign's house. Maybe it was just a coincidence. That was what they thought until Harry, Rebecca, and Rome got out of the car and headed straight to the Sovereign's house without hesitation. Wayne's subordinates were dumbfounded. Their guess had been correct. The Cassidy family was bringing them to the Sovereign's residence. Was Stephen actually the Sovereign? They looked at each other with trepidation in their eyes. They hesitantly fell into step behind the Cassidy family. They had walked this path several times before, but it suddenly felt like they were treading on thin ice into unknown territory. Harry, Rebecca, and Rome had no idea how distressed Wayne's subordinates were. They pressed on confidently and sauntered up to the gates. "Stephen, you traitor, get out here! Don't bother hiding at home. We know you're back. If you don't come out, we'll force ourselves in." The gates opened, but it wasn't Stephen who came out. It was Dale. Wayne's subordinates' eyes were wide in horror. Dale's appearance confirmed that Stephen and the Sovereign were one and the same. "Why is it you? Go back in there and tell Stephen to come out," Rome threatened. "Are you glaring at us?" Rebecca demanded. "Do you want us to teach you a lesson?" Wayne's subordinates' jaws dropped. Had these people lost their minds? How dare they speak to Dale like that? In the Fallon family, Dale's existence was akin to a god. Every member, regardless of status, had to treat him with respect. Did these people not care about their own lives? At that moment, Dale's gaze swept over Wayne's subordinates. They felt a chill run down their spines. Dale was about to say something when Stephen came out in a wheelchair with Noor. "You really did come back," Rome said. "You're a traitor who only knows how to bring disaster to the country. How dare you show your face so shamelessly?" "You're the one who told me to come out," Stephen snapped. "That's why I'm here. What do you want?" "Don't talk as if you did a good deed. Ask yourself, what right do you have to stay here?" "I'm not a traitor. I haven't committed treason." "Don't try to lie your way out of this," Harry warned. "Who doesn't know what you did?" "We came to catch a traitor, and that's you," Rebecca said. Stephen gave them an unimpressed look. "You 3 are going to capture me?" "Of course not," Rome pointed to Wayne's subordinates. "They work for the head of the Fallon family. They're martial arts experts. You won't be able to run." Stephen's gaze fell on Wayne's subordinates. Their blood ran cold. Wayne's subordinates were about to kneel when Stephen gave them a warning look. They realized that he didn't want to expose his identity as the Sovereign. They straightened despite their nerves. Harry, Rebecca, and Rome didn't notice their dilemma. "What do you think? Are you afraid?" Rome asked. "If you don't want things to get messy, then follow us back obediently." "We know you're a martial artist, but that won't help against the Fallon family's people," Harry warned. "Give up your pointless struggle and come back with us." "All right, you brought 5 martial arts experts with you. I'm really scared, so I won't resist. Take me back." Stephen didn't sound afraid in the least, but Harry, Rebecca, and Rome smirked as if they'd succeeded. Even if he had resisted, Wayne's subordinates were on their side. They were not to be trifled with. "Take him away," Rome ordered. Noor and Dale stepped forward at the same time. "Both of you stay here," Stephen said. I'll go with them alone. They nodded, but they didn't move. They stared the Cassidy family down as they pushed Stephen's wheelchair into the car. On their way back to the Cassidy family's residence, Wayne's subordinates couldn't stop fidgeting. Stephen didn't say a word, so neither of them dared to make a sound. Rebecca glanced back at them and noticed that they couldn't sit still. What's the matter? Is it hot in here? You're sweating. No, it's not hot, they answered absent-mindedly. Rome was driving. He observed them in the rearview mirror. Why don't I turn on the air conditioner? Wayne's subordinates were worried that they would ask them more questions. Don't mind us. Keep your eyes on the road. Rome didn't know what had gotten into them. He stayed quiet and focused on driving. When they pulled up to the entrance, Rome, Harry, and Rebecca couldn't wait to get Stephen out of the car. They were eager to see what Wayne would do to him. They roughly pushed him out and towards the house. Wayne's subordinates followed cautiously. That was the sovereign they were disrespecting. Those three were hopeless. They could already picture the fiasco about to go down. When they made it to the hall, the entire Cassidy family came out to watch. They started criticizing him. He's a traitor. He gave up the miracle drug to survive. He's shamed our family and the country. The moment Helen lifted her cane, Wayne's subordinates came running. Stop! What do you all think you're doing in front of the Fallon family? Are you pretending we don't exist? Only then did the Cassidy family back down. Helen set her cane back on the floor. I'm really sorry. Seeing him in person made us lose our composure. Stephen is a traitor, Harry said. He gave up years of research for the sake of his life. Another round of criticisms ensued. Wayne's subordinates didn't know what to do. Valeria burst through the door and pounced on Stephen. Daddy, you're here! He picked her up with a smile. Did you miss me? I missed you lots. When are you going to bring me and Mommy home? Very soon. Wait a little more. I'll take care of the bad guys and come pick you two up. The Cassidy family looked on in contempt. Do you not understand the situation you're in? Helen asked. You don't even know if you'll live past today. When Mr. Wayne and Miss Rachel get here, they're going to bring you to the Sovereign. You'll be sentenced to death. Kim had just caught up with Valeria when she heard their ridicule. Stop accusing him without evidence. Stephen is not a traitor. Rome sneered. Everyone knows that he gave up the drug to a foreign country. Think about how much damage he caused the country. If he's really a traitor, then why did he come back? You claimed he ran away and went abroad, but not even a few days later, he returned. How do you explain that? Are you going to tell me he ran off just to walk right back into a trap? The Cassidy family fell silent. They didn't know why he'd come back either. You're not saying anything because he never betrayed the country and he never ran away. Kim looked Harry in the eye. If it were you, would you come back after committing treason? Harry was at a loss for words. She answered for him. Of course you wouldn't. Stephen has a clear conscience. He never committed a crime, and he certainly didn't sell out his own country to keep his past glory. Stephen stared up at Kim. Admiration brightened his gaze. He fell in love with her all over again. He was touched that she still believed in him after what had happened with Sylvie. Helen couldn't refute it, so she dropped the topic. Kim, stop defending him. The truth is the truth. A few words can't save him. This is a fact that the country has recognized, Rome echoed. Those who commit treason should be sentenced to death. The rest of the family resumed their criticisms. Kim, don't get involved, DeAndre said. Wayne and Rachel will deal with him. He didn't give her a chance to say anything else. He asked a few members of the family to bring Kim and Valeria to the side. Kim, don't worry about me, Stephen said. I've done nothing to discredit my honor. Everything will work out. Wayne's subordinates spoke up in his defense. Miss Kim, please don't worry. Mr. Wayne and Miss Rachel know how to differentiate the truth from the slander. Defending Stephen made Wayne's subordinates feel slightly better, but not by much because Wayne and Rachel had yet to appear. A voice came from the door. "Looks like everyone's here. Where's the traitor?" The Cassidy family turned and saw Wayne and Rachel walk into the hall, looking high and mighty and surrounded by their subordinates. They went forward to welcome them. "We've brought Stephen here," Helen reported. "We're waiting for you." Wayne nodded and went over to the crowd. Rachel and their subordinates followed. DeAndre pointed Stephen out. "This is him." The moment Wayne laid eyes on the man in the wheelchair, the air froze. The man looked back at him with a level stare. Wayne's arrogance faded. His pupils shook, and his face drained of color. "You..." The man's calm demeanor was a stark contrast to Wayne's rising panic. He introduced himself. "I'm Stephen Adams." Wayne felt like he'd been struck by lightning. Rachel wasn't doing much better. She was shell-shocked. She glanced at her father, hoping he would know what to do. The Cassidy family was bewildered by the reactions. DeAndre was also confused. Wasn't Stephen a traitor? Why were they acting like it was the end of the world? Wayne's 5 subordinates were the only ones who knew what was going on. The Cassidy family didn't think it was that serious. The Fallon family was an aristocratic family. They wouldn't be intimidated by someone like Stephen. There had to be some other reason. Rome tried to get their attention. "Mr. Wayne, Miss Rachel, how would you like to deal with him?" Wayne and Rachel came back to their senses. They almost got down on one knee out of reflex, but Stephen subtly signaled for them to stop. "So you're the Wayne stopped short, realizing his mistake. He cleared his throat and changed his words. "So you're the former commander-in-chief. I didn't think you were so young." "We had no idea," Rachel said. Stephen grinned at them. "There's a lot you don't know. Are you the one who asked them to arrest me? You want to put me on trial and convict me?" Wayne opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Arrest and convict the sovereign? He wouldn't dare. Rachel was also too stunned to speak. "You can't let him off so easily," Rome said. "The longer he's alive, the more harm he'll bring to the country," Harry agreed. "You should teach him a lesson he'll never forget." Wayne snapped out of it and glared at Harry. "Are you telling me what to do?" The Cassidy family was astonished by his outrage. Didn't Wayne want to deliver Stephen's punishment himself? Why was he lashing out at Harry? Harry shrank back. "No, of course not." Helen was worried that his mistake had ruined everything. "Mr. Wayne knows what he's doing. Who are you to tell him what to do?" Harry was on the verge of tears. "I'm sorry for overstepping my boundaries." "Hand the former commander over to me," Wayne said. "I'll deal with him however I want. It's none of your business." As he turned around to exit the hall, he subtly gestured to Rachel. She got the message and pushed Stephen's wheelchair, following him out the door. The Cassidy family watched them leave. None of them dared to ask any more questions. Wayne was still in the heat of the moment. There was no telling what he would do if he directed his anger at them. The distance between the hall and Wayne's room was only a few hundred steps, but Wayne felt like an entire century had passed by the time they reached the door. When Rachel and Stephen went inside, he checked to make sure no one was in the hallway before closing the door and locking it. Wayne hurried to kneel in front of Stephen. "I'm really sorry, Mr. Adams. We didn't know who you were." Rachel followed suit, too afraid to even breathe. If they had known that Stephen was the former commander and the sovereign, they never would have sent their subordinates to bring him here. Wayne and Rachel stared at the floor, not daring to look up. Stephen motioned for them to stand. "The ignorant aren't necessarily guilty. I won't blame you for this, so don't worry. I was going to hide my identity from you two, but it doesn't make a difference whether you know or not. Since you know who I am, it saves me a lot of trouble. You know what to do next, right?" "Yes, I understand," Wayne replied. "I'll assign my subordinate to protect your wife and daughter." Stephen was the sovereign.
He could have met Kim and Valeria whenever he wanted and asked them to come home, but he hadn't for a reason. He thought they'd be safer with the Cassidy family. "You're quick to catch on," Stephen said approvingly. "When we go back to the hall, be careful not to expose me. Do you understand? The Cassidy family can't know who I am." "Understood, Mr. Adams." In the hall, the Cassidy family was waiting impatiently. DeAndre was pondering about Wayne and Rachel's unusual reactions. As for Harry, he was still shaking after Wayne reprimanded him. Rome noticed that the atmosphere was a bit tense, so he tried to lighten the mood. "What do you think Mr. Wayne and Miss Rachel are going to do to Stephen?" "They're probably beating him up as we speak," Rebecca said. "When he's on the brink of death, they'll send him to the Sovereign." She trailed off when the doors opened. An unbelievable scene unfolded before her. Rachel was pushing Stephen's wheelchair into the hall. She was treating him with respect like he was a big shot in the Fallon family. They didn't know she was capable of so much respect. Rebecca hurried over. She looked at Stephen and then at Rachel. "What's happening?" Rachel didn't stop. "It's none of your business." "Isn't he a traitor? Aren't you going to teach him a lesson?" Rachel glanced at her. "Are you telling me what to do?" Those were the same words Wayne had said to Harry. "No, I didn't mean it like that." Rebecca tried to explain herself, but Rachel was having none of it. "It's not something you should get involved with or ask questions about." With that, Rachel resumed pushing Stephen's wheelchair towards the front entrance. The Cassidy family watched in stunned silence as they left the house. They couldn't understand why Wayne and Rachel had let Stephen go without doing anything. Kim was relieved by how things had turned out, but she had the same question as the Cassidy family. She didn't know why Wayne and Rachel had let Stephen leave without a fuss.
Rachel took Stephen back to the villa and respectfully said her goodbyes. With nothing else to worry about, Stephen shifted his focus to Vindictus. He'd asked the palace to follow Luther, Gwen, and Adler's confidants. Wes had gone to the island state to investigate Vindictus's boss, while the Fallon family had been sent across the country to prepare for any unexpected situations. After so much preparation, no leads turned up. The country was at peace. There was no sign of anyone plotting against the U.S. Vindictus had claimed that if their operation succeeded, the country would be ruined, but there was no trace of their scheme. "They wouldn't be able to keep a plan of that scale completely under wraps," Stephen said. "There has to be some clues somewhere." "We've already investigated," Aston said. "We've checked major civilian facilities, cultural relics, and historical sites. The national departments have done their own investigations. We've confirmed that Vindictus's goal does not involve those places." "What if they're plotting to drop atomic bombs on our country?" Nor suggested. "Even if they want to, they can't. After Warhawk dropped atomic bombs during a war, the world saw how much destruction it caused. Everyone's hesitant to use nuclear weapons." Stephen, Aston, and Nor fell into deep thought. "Have you heard from Wes?" Stephen asked. "He hasn't tracked down the boss yet," Aston replied. "Vindictus is a mysterious organization to begin with. Their boss is even more elusive. It won't be that easy to find him." The three of them fell silent again. What exactly was Vindictus planning? "May I give my input?" Dale asked. "Go ahead," Stephen said. "If there's no trace of Vindictus in the country, perhaps we should approach this from another angle. Maybe they're scheming to use an outside force to ruin our country." Stephen was enlightened. "I see. Why didn't I think of that? They're plotting against the U.S., but their scheme doesn't necessarily have to take place here." "That makes sense," Aston said. "That would explain why we haven't found them yet after extensive investigation." "Are they going to use our enemies overseas against us?" Nora asked. "But what can they do overseas to damage our country to that extent? Launch intercontinental missiles?" Aston considered the possibility. I doubt Vindictus would reveal their identity and establish a government in exile overseas to openly fight against us. Aston's right, Stephen agreed. Vindictus wouldn't do that. Their members were once criminals in the U.S. They're skilled at coming up with elaborate schemes and are very cautious. Even those who work with them might not know their true identities. They're messing around overseas, Nor said. What could they possibly be doing? They racked their brains once more, but still couldn't figure it out. Wait, what if? Everyone looked up at Stephen. Before he could continue, his phone rang. The Leviathan unit was calling. Nor, Aston, and Dale watched Stephen go out into the hallway to take the call. He didn't say much. He was mostly listening. As the call went on, his expression turned grave. This was the first time they'd seen Stephen look so serious. He hung up and came back into the room. That really was their goal all along, Stephen muttered. What is it? Nor asked impatiently. Their target is me. I'm the sovereign, and my position's on par with the supreme leader. If they got rid of me, what would happen to the U.S.? The divine sovereign was considered a leader of the United States. If anything happened to him, it would be a serious blow to the country. But if you're here and they're overseas, how are they planning to target you? Nora asked. The Leviathan unit just called and told me that the island state and Cadus have launched the Transatlantic Summit. They've invited more than 40 countries around the world to participate. We're one of the strongest countries, so we've been invited as well. The organizers invited the sovereign specifically and requested the U.S. to send him overseas. Their motive is obvious. Aston immediately understood. Vindictus is conspiring with the island state and Cadus to use the Transatlantic Summit to lure you overseas. They're planning to assassinate you outside of the U.S. Stephen nodded. They know it's impossible to assassinate me here, so their best chance is to lure me across the ocean and kill me off there. Vindictus was clever. The United States had been in an era of prosperity for many years. During the period of time, no high-ranking official had ever been assassinated. There were even rumors that the officials were chosen by heaven. It hadn't been long since the sovereign took over his position. If he were killed this soon, it would be a huge blow to the country. Vindictus hadn't chosen Kylan or Sylvie, even though they'd be easier to target, because generals and commanders were far inferior to the position of the sovereign. They're cunning, Dale said. The world knows how strong you are. They know they can't confront you directly. That's why they're spending so much effort to make you leave the country. The chances of success are much higher if they ally themselves with a country overseas like the island state and Cadus, Aston said. They can secretly mobilize an army without affecting the U.S. Stephen mulled over this new information. Planning a scheme of this scale takes a long time. They probably started working on it a while ago. They're almost at the end, and all they have to do is wait for me to walk into their trap. You're their target, Nor said worriedly. It'll be dangerous if you accept their invitation. It'd be better if you didn't go. Aston agreed with him. Right. Forget about the Transatlantic Summit. They make it sound like some big event with over 40 countries participating, but in my opinion, all of them are accomplices. It's not the first time the countries overseas have banded together to target us. That's what they did during the war. I have to go, Stephen said. Countries from around the world will be attending. They're sending their high-ranking officials. I'm the sovereign. If I turn them down because I'm concerned about my safety, wouldn't that make the U.S. a laughingstock? We're not a country that admits defeat, and I don't just have to attend. I have to go alone. It's a rule for all participants. Aston and Nor were astonished. What? If you're going alone, that's the same as walking to your grave. Who knows how many traps Vindictus has set up to kill you? Stephen wasn't just the sovereign of the United States. He was the Grand Palace Master of Hellcrown Palace. If anything were to happen to him, it wouldn't just affect the country. The palace's future was also at stake. Mr. Adams, I could take your place like before, Dale suggested. Almost no one has seen the sovereign's face. Stephen refused without hesitation. No, you're a prestigious member of the Fallon family. I can't put you in a dangerous situation. But, Stephen cut him off. Mr. Dale, you don't have to say anything more. I'm not a coward. This is my responsibility as the sovereign. Under no circumstance will I allow my people to die for me. As Stephen spoke, he glanced at Aston and Nor, making sure they knew that this applied to them too. Dale's respect for Stephen grew. He'd made the right decision to follow him. Vindictus has kept themselves hidden all this time for the sake of their grand plan, Stephen continued. They've already predicted that the U.S. can't fall behind the other countries. They'll know if I go there alone. They won't hold anything back when I leave the country. Aston sighed. This is what makes organizations like Vindictus so difficult to deal with. They've made it their lifelong goal to ruin the U.S. They don't care what they have to sacrifice. Aside from the sovereign leaving the country and participating in the transatlantic summit, there was no other solution. If he didn't attend, it would damage the United States' reputation and negatively affect their position on the global scale. Vindictus had taken all of these factors into consideration to ensure the sovereign's death. Nor was still worried. Mr. Adams, think it over. If you really have to go, then bring some people from the palace and the Fallon family with you. I agree with Nor, Aston said. Stephen shook his head. No, Vindictus has thought of everything. If I bring people with me, they'll use that against the country, and it'll also risk exposing the palace and the Fallon family. He couldn't let the world know that the sovereign had the palace and the Fallon family under his command. I have to go alone. But Mr. Adams. Aston and Nor tried to protest, but Stephen interrupted them. There are no buts. I've made up my mind. He looked them in the eye. Are you questioning my strength? Aston and Nor answered right away. No. Despite their quick and honest reply, they were still concerned. Stephen was strong, but the danger on this trip would be unlike anything he'd experienced before. Vindictus had been setting up this trap for a long time. They'd most likely covered all their bases, leaving the sovereign with no way out. Stephen smiled to reassure them. Okay, then that's that. I've already told the Leviathan unit that I'll be participating and going alone. I'll come back safely and see you all again. Stephen's self-assured tone didn't align with how he was really feeling. He wasn't confident that he had what it took. First, there was virtually no information on Vindictus. He had no idea how strong they were. Second, the U.S. wouldn't be able to provide backup once he left the country. His survival depended on him alone. If anything went wrong, he wouldn't make it back alive. This trip would be dangerous, but he had no other choice. This was the biggest crisis Stephen ever had to face. Even the war and Devil Hall's comeback weren't as serious as this. There was a clear line drawn between allies and enemies on the battlefield, but that wasn't the case for the transatlantic summit. Enemies could be parading as allies. The danger was all around. Stephen didn't know if he would make it back. He decided to see Kim and Valeria before he left. It could very well be the last time they saw each other. What are you doing here, Stephen? The Cassidy family was less than thrilled to see him come back so soon. Don't you remember how Mr. Wayne and Miss Rachel let you go the last time? Rebecca asked. Are you here to take advantage of their generosity? You're not welcome here, Harry said. Last time, he'd urged Wayne to punish Stephen, which had resulted in him being reprimanded in front of the entire family. Since then, he'd been holding a grudge against Stephen. Stephen didn't have the luxury to waste time chatting with the Cassidy family. I'm here to see Kim and Valeria. Get out of my way. Harry laughed. You can't even protect yourself. What can you do to us? Are you going to beat us up? Rome provoked. How are you going to do that when you can't stand up? Stephen narrowed his eyes. A chill permeated the air. Don't say I didn't warn you. Why are you crowding around my husband? Who's threatening him? The chill dissipated when Stephen saw Kim coming over with Valeria. Why are you here again? Kim asked, concerned for his well-being. He was well known as a traitor. I'm here to say goodbye to you and Valeria. Stephen picked Valeria up and carried her in his arms. Valeria, Daddy will be leaving on a trip. Listen to Mommy while I'm gone, okay? Valeria nodded. Okay, Daddy. Kim, take care of Valeria and Mom for me. Where are you going? Kim asked. This didn't seem like a normal goodbye. It sounded like he was saying goodbye forever. I'll be leaving Washington, D.C. soon, but don't worry, I'll be back in 3 months to fulfill my promise and bring you and Valeria home. Kim was quiet for a long time. She looked into Stephen's eyes, searching for answers, but his expression was unreadable. He was looking at her like he was trying to etch her features into his memory because he wouldn't have another chance. I'll wait for you, Kim said finally. Helen interrupted them. Are you leaving the country? There's no need to ask, Rebecca said. This has to be it. He says he'll come back in 3 months, but I doubt it. He's running away. Why would he come back? Harry said. Are you going abroad? Kim asked. I am, Stephen replied. But I'll be back in 3 months to pick you two up. You sound like you're going on some expedition, Helen mocked. Do you think we're idiots? Rome asked. Stephen ignored them. Kim, do you trust me? I won't go back on my word. Stop pretending, Helen said. Get lost. Don't come here again, Harry threatened. The Cassidy family started talking all at once, but Kim didn't hear any of it. At that moment, they were as good as background noise. Stephen was looking up at her expectantly, waiting for her to answer. It was like they were the only two people in the room. I trust you, Kim said. I'll take good care of Valeria and Mom while you're gone. We'll be waiting for you. Stephen set Valeria on the floor and said goodbye to her and Kim. As he was about to leave, Helen stopped him. Where do you think this is? Some kind of market where you can come and go as you please? The Fallon family was backing the Cassidy family. They'd surpassed the Addams family and had taken over their position as ranked first in the country. They couldn't accept Stephen ignoring them. Grandma, we can't let him leave, Harry said. He's trying to run away after committing treason. We can't stand by and do nothing. The Cassidy family supported him and blocked Stephen's path. Wayne and Rachel came downstairs and were startled by the scene at the entrance. What are you doing? Wayne demanded. The Cassidy family's shenanigans made him want to pull his hair out. Mr. Wayne, Miss Rachel, you two came at the right time, Rome said. He's admitted that he's planning to run away to another country. We should bring him to the Sovereign. Wayne shot him a glare. When did this become your business? Move aside. Rome kept his mouth shut and got out of his way. The Cassidy family did the same. Protect him and Valeria while I'm away, Stephen instructed when Wayne and Rachel stepped in front of him. I'll be back in 3 months to bring them home. Wayne tried to keep up the act, so he kept his answer short and curt. We'll be waiting. The Cassidy family watched Stephen leave. They glanced at Wayne and Rachel. They were standing there, making no move to stop him. Logically speaking, Stephen was a traitor, and it would be in their best interest to bring him to the Sovereign. They couldn't make sense of it. After leaving the Cassidy family's residence, Stephen went to Annapolis and met with the Leviathan unit. Cadis was hosting the Transatlantic Summit. They'd be sending a special plane to pick the Sovereign up from the U.S. Vindictus received news of the Sovereign's arrival in Annapolis as soon as he got there. At this time, they were holding a last-minute meeting. The Sovereign is in Annapolis, Luther reported. He's preparing to leave the country. Everything's going according to plan, Gwen said. The boss just sent me a message. The preparations are complete. We just need to wait for the Sovereign to get there. The other countries also sent an update. They'll be cooperating with our organization. They've sent out their elite forces to take down the Sovereign. With the release of the Transatlantic Summit, the grand plan had become transparent. As participants, Luther and Gwen were anticipating its success. Just thinking of getting rid of the Sovereign made them excited. The people are already criticizing the former commander, Luther said. Negative public opinion is on the rise. This is the perfect moment to kill the Sovereign. The country won't be able to recover from this. Gwen smirked. It's a dead end for the sovereign. Even if he knows it's a trap, he'll have no choice but to go. The boss has a good understanding of the U.S. Prestige and reputation are more important than their own lives. In other words, the sovereign's death is guaranteed. That's right. The boss will personally oversee the transatlantic summit. He'll be taking action with the other countries. The sovereign is skilled, but he's no match for this many people. Luther raised his wine glass for a toast. To our boss's wisdom and the death of the sovereign. Gwen clinked her glass with his. Cheers. In Annapolis, Stephen had donned his uniform and put on the royal mask. The imperial sword hung from his waist, and the tiger crest was in his hand. The Leviathan unit knelt in front of him. The sovereign was on par with the supreme leader. They were required to treat Stephen with the highest etiquette. Is the private jet from Cadis here yet? Stephen asked. The leader of the Leviathan unit checked his watch. There's half an hour left. Only one person from each country was allowed to participate in the transatlantic summit. To uphold this rule, Cadis sent private planes to each participating country to receive them. Every representative had arrived, except for the sovereign of the U.S. Stephen handed the tiger crest to the Leviathan unit. This trip will be dangerous. If anything happens to me and they get a hold of this crest, the right to mobilize the entire army will go to them. The leader accepted the tiger crest with a solemn expression. We'll keep it safe and wait for your return. The Leviathan unit gave Stephen a banner embroidered with a dragon that indicated he was a representative of the U.S. We know this is a trap, but there's no other option. Once you leave our territory, you'll be alone across the ocean. We won't be able to lend you our assistance. We'll have to depend on you. Place this banner at the summit. We hope for your safe return. Don't worry about your family. We'll support them regardless of the outcome. It turned out that the officials already knew that this was an elaborate scheme to target the sovereign. Understood. I won't let the country down, Stephen promised. Soon, the private jet from Cadis landed on the helipad. Cadis's emissaries greeted Stephen. It's an honor to meet you. We're here to bring you to the summit. Stephen nodded and followed them up the ramp. As the plane took off, the emissaries from Cadis discussed amongst themselves. They didn't bother to keep their voices low. The sovereign was on board. He was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. What did it matter if they heard him or not? The sovereign is brave. He's really going to the summit alone. Let's see how long he can hold on to that banner. Stephen heard everything, but he paid them no mind. He remained in his seat with the banner in hand and stared out the window during the entire journey. There was a mountain famous for its dangerous terrain located deep within the country of Cadis. It was known as Mount Reef. It was isolated from civilization. Cadis had chosen this mountain to hold the transatlantic summit. They said this was the only place suitable for the summit because it was a well-known landmark, but the real reason was the difficult terrain. It would be easier to set up a trap and get rid of the sovereign. Deep in the mountains, hundreds of thousands of people were lying in ambush, and more were coming as the hours passed. It wouldn't be long until their numbers reach 1 million. Numerous traps had been planted throughout the mountain. Vindictus had conspired with the island state, Warhawk, and Cadis to make this possible. This mountain would be the sovereign's grave. At this time, influential figures from across the world were on the mountain. They had been invited to participate in the summit. They could sense the foreboding atmosphere the moment they set foot on the mountain. Cadis had claimed that the transatlantic summit was a grand event to unite the countries, but it was actually a trap to dispose of the sovereign. The participating countries had also been members of the alliance during the previous war with the United States. They turned a blind eye to Cadis's ulterior motives because the U.S. was too powerful. The sovereign's death would benefit all of them. The representatives went deeper into the mountain and encountered a man with blonde hair and blue eyes. Sorry for the late introduction. I'm Adler Robinson from Warhawk. From now on, everyone here will be under my command. The representatives didn't take this news well. They were all influential figures in their home countries. Why would they follow the orders of someone from Warhawk? What's the matter? Doesn't look like you're too happy about it. Adler raised his hand. Soldiers emerged from the forest behind him and trained their guns on the representatives. The first representative quickly expressed his stance. "I'll follow you. We all will." What else could the other representatives say? They could only agree. But these soldiers weren't the only people that Adler had arranged. There were many more scattered across the mountain. Obtaining the miracle drug from the U.S. was an important mission, but Adler hadn't sent out his troops to assist Vindictus. They had succeeded without shedding a drop of blood. This time, he'd gathered all of his forces with the sole intention of killing the sovereign. On the private jet, Stephen opened his eyes and checked the time. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. The U.S. was only 4 or 5 hours away from Cadus, but they'd been in the sky for 7 hours. He guessed that this was another one of Vindictus's schemes. Being on a plane was tiring, and it would drain the sovereign's energy. They didn't want to face him when he was in his peak condition. Unfortunately for them, long flights were nothing for Stephen. Vindictus had underestimated his cultivation base. He could recover anytime, anywhere. He wasn't restricted by time and space. Stephen drew his legs up on the seat and sat cross-legged. He closed his eyes for 10 minutes. This was the equivalent to an ordinary person sleeping for 24 hours. But this wasn't the only reason Vindictus had extended the duration of the flight. There was another that Stephen had yet to realize.